Welcome to Talk Dirt to Me, where two farmers shatter myths and take on the top issues facing America's farmers. Here's your hosts, Logan and Bobby Lee.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, back to an evening recording. So good evening. Good evening, everyone, no matter what time you're listening.
That's right. Good evening. Sipping our bourbon around.
Well, what are you sipping?
The Devil's Cut.
Devil's Cut.
Yep. And what about you?
Jefferson's Ocean.
And you ain't had no chicken cock in a while. What's the problem over here?
Well, I'll tell you tonight. Well, we can go ahead and tell everyone. I was supposed to be here at 8:15.
Yeah, Bobby Lee, he tends to touch the clock.
I'm sitting there having dinner with my family, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, I got to be at Logan's at 8:15. I look at my watch, and it's 8:20. I think I uttered a 4-letter word, and ran and just grabbed my, because first, like, I ain't even going to take a cup of it, just grab a beer. And I was like, no, I got to pour me a drink. So I grabbed the first thing in the cabinet. It was the Jefferson's Ocean.
I got you. Gotcha.
I couldn't be picky tonight. So.
No, well, that's good. Jefferson's Ocean's good too. Yeah. Dustin?
Good pull.
Yeah.
Good
You're having the Devil's Cut as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
Now, you're a bourbon man.
Proof, yeah.
Aren't you a bourbon man?
Yeah, I like bourbon.
Y'all are hearing a different voice tonight. We got an awesome guest in the studio. And I will, before we get in too deep, I got a couple of things we need to say. First, we did receive quite a bit of feedback on the last episode. And I'll just say, message received. Yeah. I think that's where we'll leave it there.
But yeah, back-to-back guest episodes.
Back-to-back guest episodes. And we got an ag wizard on the show tonight. Mr. Dustin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
That's right.
I don't know about ag wizard. You know, we don't need to get the viewers' expectations up too high.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you, Ben, you're the man in the area.
Well, hey, I like to try to help the farmer. That's what it's all about.
Well, I've been pumped. You know, we've been trying to line this up a while, and getting the schedules worked out has it's just a job. It always is to get the schedules lined up, and we'd love to have in studio guests is always a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that's
so
much better than the remote. I mean, obviously sometimes, geography limits us, but yeah. Do
us a favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe, comment below, let us know what you think of the episode, and after you hear this episode, if you have questions for Dustin or something, feel free to comment them, and we'll relay them to him and try to get you a response. And anything that you guys want to hear from us, let us know. Leave us 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify. Spotify, actually, we've still been steadily bumping up on the ratings.
Spotify's, which I have Spotify, but I don't listen to podcasts on Spotify. I just listen to music. So
I've been listening to more on Spotify here lately, but I still, Amazon Music's usually my go-to. But do that, and what else I need to do?
Check out agzaga.com. I actually just got a box in today from them. Check them out. The Bellnet wrap, we're going to mention that every time. That's the big thing. You're not going to beat their prices, the selection, the super fast shipping, and you can get it all 10% off using that discount code, Talk Dirt, all caps, all one word.
Yep, do that. All right, man. Dustin, glad to get you on.
Yeah, like I said, glad to be here. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, so hope I can bring some value to the show here.
Man, I'm sure you can, and man,
it doesn't take a lot to
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. Especially when you're sitting with us. The bar is pretty low. Yeah, we set a low bar.
We used to make a bunch of junior high jokes. And,
and it was just 2 or 3 episodes ago. We were talking about the length of garden hose and what was the average size.
It started with the length of the shotgun shell.
That's right. Dude, we were crying. I hadn't laughed that hard in a long time.
It was just one of those things that got away from us, and then I was trying to finish an ad, talk about a garden hose.
What's the average size? And man.
It's got to be 50 foot,
Yeah, that's what I said. That's well, he was talking about a shell about that long, and I said, that's about the 6-inch long shotgun shell, I think.
That's like I told my wife last time it snowed. I said, that's a foot of snow, baby.
There you go.
I told you, man, he'd be a good one.
It's all about managing expectations.
It is. Right. It is. That's what is it? Homer Simpson says, if you never have expectations, then you're never disappointed.
Yeah.
So there you go.
A lot of truth in that.
Great
It is.
philosopher of our time.
That's right. That's right. Dustin, give us a little rundown of what you do and who you are.
Yeah, so I grew up in Jackson, Tennessee, or just north of Jackson, Tennessee. I guess when I was in high school, that was my first introduction to ag. So I did not really grow up in an ag family.
Yeah.
Dad worked for Farm Bureau, and we had a lot of farmer friends and things like that, but never really grew up on a farm. And so in high school, I had the opportunity to go work on a cow-calf operation. I worked on that operation from the time I was a freshman in high school till I graduated and went to college, and ended up going to UT Martin. That's the ag school of Tennessee.
Yep.
If you want to do anything PhD or vet related or engineering related, you go to Knoxville. But if you're in West Tennessee and you want to do ag, you either go to Murray State in Kentucky or you go to UT Martin. So
You're speaking this man's language.
What year did you graduate from Martin?
I graduated in 11.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I was long gone.
Bobby Lee.
Long gone, but
Bobby Lee already.
I assumed as much. I was like, yeah.
When was Kimber born?
Oh, 2014.
Oh, I was going to say Bobby Lee already had a kid in school by that time.
My brother would have graduated in 09, so y'all would have overlapped a little. But yeah. He was an ATO, which,
okay.
rest in peace.
He was a
ATO.
pike.
No,
No, I'm just kidding.
I saw him on top of the hill. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
no,
We have to pour one out for the ATOs at Martin.
Yeah, that house is gone, ain't it?
no. The KAs are
If I
in
say
it.
it's
Oh.
there, yeah, it's probably even worse, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. The Cage's house got burned down. Didn't one of them get burned down?
Not.
I don't. Oh, that's the old ATO house burned down.
Okay.
Back when
Gotcha.
it was the Pizza Hut house.
Gotcha.
It
Gotcha.
burned down.
Were you in a fraternity at Martin?
Yeah, I was a SAE there. I had a
Gotcha.
lot of local friends there. Actually, one of the farm managers over at the UT farm in Jackson.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
an SAE over there, and so there were some good people from Jackson there that was from my ag background. So
Yeah. Man, I'm trying to think. I had some buddies. What year did you graduate high school?
6.
A 6. And you were at Martin at 11. I had a few buddies there, but most of mine were at that point probably too stoned to ever have shown up for any classes. Most of mine were out on, and they didn't go ag. I don't think I had any in the ag
Yeah.
route.
Yeah.
If they were at Cadillacs, I might have seen them or ran into them, but
They might have been at Cadillacs. Yeah.
that other part of the crowd you mentioned, I might not have been
Yeah.
Yeah.
too involved.
Some of them strayed from the alcohol and went the other route.
Well, I understand.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
each their own. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Went the healthy route.
they did. Yeah, they went the healthier route. Yeah, an old guy used to tell my dad around here if he couldn't get his rocks off with beer and cigarettes, then he didn't need it. And so they didn't agree to that philosophy.
Yeah,
they went the other way. So
But
where?
yeah, no,
So keep going.
At Martin, that's kind of when I fell in love with row crop and really soil health, soil science.
Is that what you knew you wanted to go into that when you went to college?
No, so here's where the separation is between me and Bobby Lee here. I went to school, growing up dealing with cattle for those 4 or 5 years. I wanted to be a large animal vet.
Yeah.
And I got there and realized I wasn't quite smart enough in some of the subject matter to be able to be a large animal vet.
What was the one that got you?
Some of the chemistry stuff.
Well, I was about to
really-
ask chemistry because I heard it was brutal.
Some of the chemistry stuff. And so,
I took organic chemistry number 1 twice and biochemistry number 1 twice. Because I never failed, but I made D's in my first 2 of those,
Yeah.
and they won't accept that.
if it's your major, you got to have a C.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
So, I dropped that and ended up going ag business. Ended up talking to my advisor, who's still at Martin, that's doing a great job with kids now. He's actually over part of the master's program there.
Okay.
But, he told me, he said, well, do something well-rounded. Let's not just stick ourselves in a bucket. Let's be well-rounded in ag and try to get a feel of all of it. So I ended up doing ag business and ended up, working on the farm a little bit too while I was there, and ended up really falling in love with the row crop side of things, and had an opportunity to go to work for Helena right out of college, and took that opportunity. And if there's any young kids listening today, I'll tell you, I said, take any opportunity you can get. I went to work for Helena with a bachelor's degree, making $9 an hour in 2011, and driving a tow motor and treating seed. Now I've been with the company almost 15 years.
Yeah, I didn't realize you immediately went to Helena.
I did, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I ended up taking that role, and then I ended up getting a warehouse manager job, and ended up scouting some cotton in Alamo, and ended up getting more involved with the precision space. And so precision really didn't take off in ag retail world and probably till 2007.
Yeah.
And so there was a large learning curve between 2007 and 2012. And 2014 is really when it started taking off, when the equipment capability was there.
Yeah.
There was some telemetry stuff that was coming out. So the infield application was much easier then. And so it really started taking off, and I got I felt like I belonged in that area, so I took that route and ended up working in Mason, Tennessee for a few years doing that role, mainly soil fertility, scouting crops, tissue sampling, things of that nature. When I was at Mason, I was generally 10,000 acres of cotton and a couple thousand acres of grain is generally what I looked at while I was here. And now I get the opportunity to serve growers in the Boot Hill, Missouri, West Kentucky, West Tennessee, in an agronomy support role. Yeah. I really took that role. I loved what I did at Mason, but I really took that role to, just be involved with more farmers, see more management practices, be able to kind of hone in on my skills and my knowledge, and really see what all is out there. And
well, what is that? What was that process like going into the agronomy side? Was that a big? I mean, were you kind of studying as you were going? I mean, how did you get into that role?
Yeah. So while I was still at Alamo, I was managing the seed there. Yeah. So I was managing all the seed, treating all the seed there, and I got really involved with scouting cotton. That was my passionate crop, still is today. But really just being in the field and wanting to learn. I, took the CCA and passed it in one time, and I pretty much.
What is that?
Certified crop advisor.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I took that.
I'll say I'm going to ask you questions because we got people that listen that aren't even in ag.
Right.
They just want to know.
And in ag, we love acronyms. I feel like more than any other.
Us in the military.
Yeah.
I was going to say us in the military are acronym free.
We can be a little lazy sometimes. We work real hard, and then we get a little lazy in our communication sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
You can ask my wife now. She was studying to become a nurse, and I'm sitting over there studying a CCA book, and a lot of late nights, and just putting a lot of the stuff from textbook to work in the field.
What is that? What did that look like? I mean, studying for that, is that something that anybody can do? Can anybody get that? Or do you got to have like a bachelor's degree or anything like?
No, you don't have to have a bachelor's degree. No.
What can you do once you have that?
Well, I think it's a network. Yeah. So obviously the number one thing I would say is you'd be able to probably reach out to more professionals in the field, be able to gain more insight, possibility of engaging in other type of employment, things like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right, so you got that, and now you're in the agronomy side, because, man, I called him the wizard, but I'm going to tell you, man, you're like the man when it comes to the stuff, like, because I've dealt with, and you said Helena, and I've been doing business with Helena. We were talking off air. I started row crop farming on my own in 2015 when I started my operation, and immediately was dealing with Helena. And I've been with Helena now. I guess this will be my 11th season. And man, I've all the time when I have good agronomy questions, we always deal with people, and it's like, well, let's talk to Dustin. We'll get a plan. And so man, I'm not blowing smoke at you. I mean, how did you get so knowledgeable on the agronomy?
I tell the same thing to everybody that asks me that question, and it's being in the field.
Yeah.
You have got to experience it in the field. You can read everything you want to in a textbook. You can have a PhD, you can have a master's, whatever you want, but until you make recommendations and you walk the fields and you understand those growers' management styles and practices, and you're managing that crop day to day, week to week, that's where you really start to learn. And so you can start taking those practices and what you see here and implement it in other places.
Gotcha. Yeah. That makes sense.
It's no different like in the veterinary world. Like, you learn more in your first year out of school than you did in your 4 years in school.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you learn so much shit in school that you'll never use again. and there's so much they don't teach you about, just the basic stuff. Yeah. There's no better teacher than just experience.
Yeah.
I agree. And reaching out to people, what I did whenever I first, because I was, when people first get into the ag industry, they're like, these people are really green. He's green as goose shit, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was probably not quite as bad as goose shit, but I was real close. And so everybody that I was around that had those years of experience, I was just soaking it up.
Yeah.
Asking them questions, trying to, get what they've seen in their 30 years of experience, and me try to experience that with the time that I had with them.
On that side of the coin there, being on the, I guess, on the input side and kind of that area, rather than, because, dude, some farmers are real weird about sharing anything. They don't want to share any information. I know guys that they would be offended if you asked them what their field yielded. And did you see anything like that in that side of the industry, or is everybody pretty darn helpful and wants to share?
I think it depends on the relationship that you have with that customer. There are still some people out there today that do not want to share their data.
Yeah.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
I think there's some people out there, some companies out there that are obviously data sharing or selling data and using that to mine down for certain reasons. But at the end of the day, I think you have to show them the reason that you want to capitalize on getting their data and what you're going to do with it to help them.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even as far as somebody teaching you, did you see, was everybody pretty helpful as far as other employees at Helena or whatever that you've met throughout the years? Were they pretty quick to be like, man, here's what you need to look for, or here's the things to kind of check on?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of mentors along the way for sure, and still have a lot of mentors today, people I look up to, people I still call for questions daily.
Yeah.
I tell some people all the time, when I'm sitting down in meetings with them, going over their soil books or yield data, and we start just asking questions. I'm like, if you're not learning something every day, then you're not working hard enough.
Yeah.
And you're not passionate enough. So obviously I still learn every day. But I've had a great opportunity to be able to kind of spread my wings a little bit and see different management practices from fur irrigated fields in Missouri all the way to, dryland rolling hills in Western Kentucky. So there's a lot of different management styles there. There's a lot of different soil properties and amendments that we have to deal with. So it's challenging at times, but it's really rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to get into it at some point in this episode. I want to get into kind of game planning for this year, because, I mean, we're obviously in a very interesting year. You got anything else on his backstory?
No, man, I think you covered it pretty well. So,
yeah, Bobby Lee, he's a Martin man and a Knoxville man, so he checked both off the box there. Yep.
Yep. I enjoyed my time at both. Yeah. If I had to do over again, I don't think I'd done anything different.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you did it. You made it in the right time. I got some buddies that have 4-year degrees that were there for 8 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, they had a lot of fun.
And not a lot of studying, but a lot of fun.
Yeah. Wasn't it Tommy Boy when he's like, lots of people go to school for 8 years?
Yes. And then what do they say? Yeah, and they have a doctorate?
Yeah, they're called doctors.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, that's cool, man. And I think it's neat that you come from not an ag background, because we've shared this before. We try to have guests of all spectrum of ag, because as we've said many times, there's a lot of hands that go into a crop. And I was telling Dustin off air, man, if it weren't for an agronomy team, I'd be in trouble. I feel like everybody kind of has an area they're passionate about, and some farmers are really passionate about fertilizer, and some are really passionate about maybe their chemical plan, and some are passionate. And man, I love seed. I just love the seed. I feel like I got a pretty good idea. I need to put this seed on this farm, and I know I like to tinker with populations and things like that. That's kind of what I enjoy. The fertility stuff, I'm trying to learn more about it. I'm going with cover crops and things and playing around. And but man, if it weren't for, I'm in the high ground system with Helena, and dude, we're always building prescriptions and things for my fields, and I'm trying to go that route on just about as much as I can. But I'm very grateful for a solid agronomy team. I think that. Do you see guys that don't utilize that pretty often, or are most farmers nowadays pretty well utilizing agronomy?
That's a really good question. I would say when I started in this role in 2017, I probably witnessed that there was 50 or 60% of the customer base not utilizing some type of precision service or some type of agronomy type tool.
Yeah.
And I bet now it's probably closer to, there's probably 70% or 75% of those growers that are using some type of tool.
Really?
And I think a lot of that is because of, we have to implement, well, first off, we have to be willing to be a little more uncomfortable when we get into the type of market we are today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We have to be willing to try something different if what we're currently doing is not working.
Yeah.
And so I think coming off some pretty good years of 21, 22, you know, and then we've kind of been in this trend we've been in for the last couple of years. I think more guys have realized that, or more growers have realized that maybe we need to dive into this a little bit more and have a more honed in and detailed plan of what we should do.
Yeah.
Rather than just a multitude approach of just, I'm just going to bullet this out there and hope that it works. So
Yeah.
Well, and like you say, with the challenges the market creates, I mean, it demands people try to find every little advantage they can. I mean, what's the saying? I'm drawing a blank, but basically harder times.
Oh, hard times create strong men.
Well, yeah, but like tough times, necessitate that you really find those little edges. I mean, there's margins are so thin right now. You gotta try to find every little advantage you can. So when times are good and corn $7 or $8, I mean anybody can make
you look
profit.
at the average age of the farmer. Yes, it is still high.
Yeah.
But if you look at where it was 10 years ago, there's a lot of younger farmers coming into the mix now, and they obviously are more tech savvy and want to do more with the technology that the equipment it's offering. That some of these ag retail companies are providing. So, obviously I think that's a big role in it as well.
Yeah.
But
well, that's what today I went and actually hooked up because I've got Field View, and I've utilized it. I use it on my harvester and always pass along the data, and we kind of formulate off that. But I've not been able to use it on my planter because I got a John Deere tractor with a red planter, and getting it to sync because it runs off of a what do they call them? Like a bus plug or something in the tractor. And
CAN bus. CAN
bus, yep. It runs off of one of those in the tractor. Well, my tractor doesn't recognize that I'm planting because it's a red planter. So I've put it in there. I remember when I first got Fieldview, man, I was so pumped. I had my iPad in there, like I looked freaking high tech, and put my puck in. It links up, and I put the planter down, and then nothing pops up on there. It's just the tractor just driving along. And I'm like, what the hell? So I have not used it on there, and I finally give Ag Express a shout out. I called them and was like, I want to link these things up. So I put a harness in there today where now I had to put like a new port in the tractor, and it's got two cords that run out, and one attaches to the Pro 700 monitor, and the other one like attaches to the tractor. So it like feeds them together. So now I'm going to use it. This year I'm going to use it when I spray, when I plant, and when I harvest. I'm about to go, as I told my wife, as much tech as I can run, I'm going to run this year because I've got the capabilities. I just haven't been utilizing all of it.
Right.
And I'm like, with the way things are, I need to know like exactly what is going on every single acre.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
I mean, do you think that like formulating for this year, we've already had one meeting this year, and what do you tell guys this year? What do they need to do? Because some people I've heard them be like, I'm going to cut back on some of my fertilizer. And man, I think that's a dangerous game. I mean, because I feel like you don't sacrifice fertility for the sake of you're not going to save yourself into a profit.
Well, I think you make a good point there. But I think I do want to point out that really my conversations with growers are very mixed. There's some that I've talked to. We just had the Mid-South Farm and Gin show. Got to talk to a lot of great farmers from the region, and I would say probably 30% of them said I'm sticking to my normal game plan.
Yeah.
I'm not changing up anything that I'm going to do. Then you have others that are going to try to cut in some categories. I think the most important thing is what category is that going to be in? Because like you just mentioned, especially for somebody that's in a consistent soybean rotation.
Yeah.
The no fertility game is very dangerous.
Yeah.
if you are in some type of rotation, you can back up off that a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, you can try to remove $40 or $50 out of a budget, but I don't think that comes from fertilizer.
Yeah.
There's so many advantages to that, especially in the market that we deal with here. If you are in lower CEC soils that are highly eroded, not a lot of topsoil, very low organic matter, there's a lot that you can influence there with dry fertilizer.
Yeah.
And, we have to manage for that. But at the end of the day, I think some guys are going to stick to their normal plan. And I think there's going to be some men and women out there that try to cut in some areas. And as long as they are cutting in areas that make sense for their acre.
Yeah.
If I'm talking corn, I'm talking maybe a more efficient nitrogen plan.
Yeah.
Maybe if we're making 2 applications now and we're putting out 200 or 250 units of nitrogen, maybe we look at trying to split that out and reduce our overall amount of nitrogen that we are applying.
Yeah.
If I'm talking soybeans in a lot of our market, I'm telling people to maybe reduce their phosphorus. A lot of the yield data that we see through Helena, our True Yield program, we see that phosphorus is not a big impact of yield here in our market on soybeans. So,
yeah.
If you are medium, optimum, or very high in phosphorus, let's make sure that we're not applying $700 a ton DAP on a $10 bushel soybean. So, just trying to make minor changes like that and really focus in on the correct plan. What I tell people and try to tell them every day is, if you are going to cut, we still need the fertilizer plan to be balanced.
Yeah.
You can't put all your eggs in one basket and expect to reach that overall, optimal yield opportunity. So I like a balanced approach. I like a timely approach.
Yeah.
And obviously you can tissue sample, look at satellite imagery in season to help you guide yourself on what your crop's doing. How healthy is it? What's the biomass looking like? And is there anything I can do in season to help increase my yield opportunity?
Yeah. Have you looked into much of this lower? I've been seeing recently on some of these podcasts and different articles, they talk about cutting back nitrogen rates in corn, but they're still achieving high yields. Have you been looking at any of the lower rate of nitrogen? Because year before last year I had no corn. This first year in a long time I've had no corn, which will bite my ass this year because it's like in years where I had corn, sometimes the next year I wouldn't even actually have to fertilize behind the corn, my beans, when I'd plant beans back. But I put 300 units of nitrogen down on one field, and this was kind of an experiment, and I was going to try to achieve 300 bushel acre corn, dry land corn, no irrigation, and it ended up averaging about 230, which I was pretty freaking happy with. But now again, it may not have been 300 units, but it was at least 250 units of nitrogen. Like I threw the kitchen sink at it, but again, average 230. I was happy with that. And this is not river bottom ground. Like this was just a regular field.
I would think most growers in our area would be happy with 230.
Yeah.
In the area that I cover.
Dude, I was like, if a farm would average 200, I was always pretty ecstatic.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But when it was shelling, and I knew it was doing good because, man, I love it. You can look back in the combine and the actual auger feeding into the hopper back there, it looks like you couldn't fit another kernel in that thing because it's such a huge stream of corn coming out. You're full in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And unloading. I'm like, man, this is cool. But yeah, when I put pencil to paper, I was like, man, 230. But I've been seeing and listening to some guys that they're utilizing lower nitrogen, and I don't know if normally they put 200 units out, they're cutting it all the way back to like maybe 160, but they're still getting 200 bushel corn. Have you looked into much of that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely realistic.
How are they doing?
I do not think in the area that I cover, like I said, I'm in the Boot Hill, Missouri, West Kentucky, West Tennessee. I do not generally see that nitrogen is our limiting factor.
Yeah.
Now, our nitrogen management can be a very big limiting factor.
Like how it's applied?
If we are extremely front-loading
Yeah.
our nitrogen on our crop, then that's the number one thing that we should change.
Yeah. What percent would you put out?
Especially if you're in a rotation with no cover crop. Okay?
Yeah.
There's no, high, if we're not starting off with a high carbon to nitrogen ratio, I'm really good with that 50 to 60 units pre-plant, and then maybe we come in with the rest of ours later on. But
Yeah.
we've seen a lot of instances where we can be 0.8, 0.9, units of N per bushel.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
I think a lot of it depends on that rotation, your management practices. Is there a cover crop out there? What type cover crop is it? All those things matter.
And of course, you're talking about cover crop, and of course, me coming from more the grays and
The gay set. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Which of course, a lot of these guys, we want a good mix, of legumes and grasses, and of course, your legumes are fixing nitrogen for you. How much, of having like a clover in your cover crop mix, does that actually meet your nitrogen need?
Well, it's not going to meet your nitrogen need if it doesn't bloom.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the clover, a lot of your legumes are not going to be nitrogen fixing until they reach bloom.
Okay.
So you have to let them get pretty deep into the spring
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
market.
Before you terminate them. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I like that on clover.
But
even
we've
if you-
seen 40, 50 pounds.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Do you know what seeding rate that is?
I don't.
Yeah. Man, I'd be
It would
curious.
be a
now.
really low seeding rate, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang, 40 to 50 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I love crimson clover. That's one of my favorite things to put out.
yeah. Oh, it's pretty too.
It is.
When it does bloom. Yeah.
It is pretty.
I've got a bunch in some pasture on one farm.
I did
What
more.
what I recommend people to try to do in that situation is, if they know they're going to rotate to corn after their beans, try to fly it into your bean
Yeah.
early.
Yeah.
Try to get those those type cover crops out a little bit early, like your turnips, your radishes as well.
Yeah.
Try to get them out maybe in August or the 1st of September rather than waiting till after harvest.
Yeah.
I like to get them down before I cut them
Mm-hmm.
because I found that if we fly them on and then I cut just that cover from the beans, man, they come up really good.
Kind of mulches them
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
Where we've been like late and they fly them on, if it's already been cut, which last year's funny, I did more cover crop than I've ever done. I probably cover cropped 90% of my acres, and I had one field that came up because it was so dry. I mean, I spent quite a bit of money on cover crop
What was
last
your
year.
cover crop choice there? What seed were we going with?
I did 2 blends. I did a 5 species. It was wheat, rye, crimson clover. Let's see. Did I have the rye in there? I had some hairy vetch in it.
Okay.
And because I know it's a good nitrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other one? Either a radish or a turnip.
Okay.
And then the 3 blend, I did a 3 blend, and this was just kind of my own tinkering. I did a heavier rate of crimson clover, and I can't remember what it was. I got it wrote down in my office in there, but it was a 3 blend, but I upped the rates. I was kind of I was playing around, and it was just from me looking at, well, this will beef up nitrogen, kind of that element of it. And I was really excited to see how it would do. Mm-hmm. And not a damn one of them came up. Like Keith, we had Keith Anderson on here. He flew it on for me. He asked me later when we had him on the show, he was like, man, how's it look? And I'm like, I don't know. It don't look good. You can't see it. There's nothing there. So I was really bummed because I experimented a little bit. But I don't know, man. I've been doing cover crops now forever, or for probably not forever, but for the last 5 years. And I love cover crops. And man, I'm one of the weirdos around here. I plant green. Like a lot of times I'll plant into it green. Mm-hmm. And I've planted into green that was like 4 foot tall. And you're praying while you're planting. Like it just, man,
Praying you remember where the ditches are.
Because I have hit them ditches. But it helps with the ditches a lot. Like I was driving by, the farm I live on, y'all wouldn't know it, but like up here by the road, there's a spot. It used to be a bad ditch where it came in there. Now you just plant right across it. I've no-tilled this place ever since I bought it. And I've been cover cropping it for, I guess, 5 years now. And it's literally like now the ditches, they're just solid. Like not all of them. There's some bad ones, but for the most part, man, they've filled in with that cover and everything.
So we've been no-till in majority of my market in West Tennessee for a while now, and cover crops really took off when NRCS in our area started pushing that as a program and incentivizing people.
Yep.
And I think the biggest challenge is understanding what are you trying to accomplish with the cover crop.
Yeah.
There's some cover crops out there that are very good for just erosion.
Yeah.
There's some out there, some seed out there that's very good for nutrient scavenging, and nutrient cycling. There's some out there for nitrogen fixing.
Yeah.
It just all depends on what you want to do. But
what's your favorite blend? If you right now, and from all right, let's set some boundary here. Not for erosion, but like, all right, I got a farm, it's mediocre dirt, and I want to beef up that. I want to get that dirt a little darker. I need to beef the fertility up on the soil. I want to do it via cover crops. What is your blend? I don't care if it's a 5 species or what it is.
So it's not going to be a blend.
Okay.
I'm not a big proponent of turnips and radishes. If you are going to corn and you want to throw a clover or Austrian winter pea or something like that in the mix, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine with doing that. But I'll tell you, my go-to is going to be 20 to 30 pounds of cereal rye, or it's going to be triticale.
Yeah.
And those, for our soils, and especially in a no-till environment, they have a much deeper root than wheat or oats. I feel like they're creating a lot better water channels. I feel like we get a lot better porosity in our soil, and you'll probably see a little bit deeper root profile in your crop to follow that than you would in wheat or oats.
Really?
And you still get your erosion control. Now, obviously, you're talking about a little bit more dollars spent on seed.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, I think they bring a lot more agronomic advantage than just wheat or oats.
Well, the rye, I do cereal rye. It may have been in the 5 species. And I did the 5 because that was an equip in our CS plan. But I kind of think you could change it, but you had to have 5 and it has to meet a certain percentage.
Right.
And, but we laughed before the dude at NRCS, man, I started asking him questions about the blends, and I was like, man, can I change this? And he was like, are you actually interested in this stuff? And I was like, yeah, that's why I'm asking about it. And he was like, man, everybody else just is like, which pays the most? He's like, nobody gives a shit about the cover crops. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I love this stuff. Like, Yetter makes these crop devastators that are roller crimpers that mount to the front of the planters.
Yep.
And, dude, I've been wanting to put them on there because then it lays it down. Because that's always been my issue with running a roller crimper. Because NRCS has one you can rent. But you got to roll it down the same direction you plant. And I'm a one-man show, and I got one tractor. So I'd have to, like, unhook the planter and put the roller crimper on. So I've been looking at them Yetters. So like you shouldn't have talked about cover crop because I love talking about cover crops because I'm just interested. Have you looked into, do y'all do like, what do you think on like roller crimping? Like I want to know your full thoughts, man. Like, all right, I'm getting ready to move into season. Do you just recommend, all right, just going in and terminating, planting green, roller crimping? What are your thoughts on all of it?
I don't like the dense canopy of having to crimp something.
Yeah.
Not for us.
Yeah.
We don't drain well here.
Just stay too wet.
It just stays too wet.
Yeah.
And if you can talk to the guys in Western Kentucky, when you get a lot of that dense canopy and a lot of that residue on top of the soil, you open yourself up to a lot of slug damage.
Yeah, I have had slug damage before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they were replanting fields 2 or 3 times. And I think at the end of the day, like I said, it's all about what you're trying to achieve with it. Right?
Yeah.
And I think for what I mentioned, if we're talking about the cereal rye or we're talking about triticale, then I'm really thinking that if it's soybeans, we can kind of prolong that termination a little bit longer. But really, for me, if that field's going to be planted into corn the following year, I really want to go ahead and get it, burned down 30 days prior to planting.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've never planted corn green. I've always been scared to plant corn green.
Well, there's some people that have, and it's a risk.
Yeah.
And really, your nitrogen piece comes into play there because those are really nitrogen high. You're talking about a 70-to-1 carbon to nitrogen ratio. I mean, it takes a lot of nitrogen to overcome that.
Yeah.
And so, then you're talking about $500 a ton urea, and you're like, well, I have to spend, $25 more in nitrogen to feed my crop correctly. So I think it's all balanced approach. I tell people all the time, the number one thing I would not do is put cover crops on something that's, if I get the cover crop out there and I'm ready to plant, but the field's still too wet.
Yeah.
Then I think we've seen in the market that we work in here, and probably even Arkansas as well, will fit into this, and most of the I-states. If you're delaying that planting, you're probably delaying your yield opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I ran last year. I ran into some fields that were super wet, and we actually ended up I had to run a turbo till over them just to try to get in there and plant them, and because it was starting to get late. And I mean, so now typically I kind of outfitted my planter. I put the spiked closing wheels on it, and that was a game changer. And I mean, I love red planters. Like, I'm a believer in them red planters. Like, I tell people, I think you could plant through concrete with one of them things. And with the spiked discs, because it wasn't closing the trench all the way. And with that spiked wheel, man, it closes it. And I noticed even in some pretty heavy ground, I would still get a really good stand after I changed those wheels.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. But I enjoy the cover crop stuff.
I think it has a great fit for a lot of us, especially here in West Tennessee and West Kentucky. I think it just needs to be managed correctly.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know, I texted Bobby Lee last year out here because this place had a hairy vetch mix and some other things on it. And up there, like where our farm store is, I didn't have a crop up there, and I was just bush hogging one day, and I think I sent you like a picture. You remember it?
I remember you messaging me about it.
It was like, I was bush hogging stuff that was 4 foot tall, and it was purple, pretty green, hairy vetch, and all this in there. And I sent you a picture, I think, and was like, hell, we should have baled this stuff. Like, it was so thick of stuff, man. I mean, it would have been a good just random mix for the cows or something.
Yeah.
But I did have a guy one time on a field I had cover crop on. It had gotten pretty big, and I was going to just plant it green. I had a dude call me, and he asked me if he could round bale it.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, yeah. So he went out and round baled it. Man, it was a dream when I planted it, because when I got there, it was like, it looked like a cut yard. And I dropped in it, planted, awesome. And I had even kicked around like, man, if you could grow a blend that a guy could bale and you knew he could get it off in time, because that'd be the one thing I'd worry about. Like, if it Bobby Lee, he's going to make it rain because he'll cut hay and then it rains on it. But if you could, there's a lot of different avenues, man. It's like you could actually sell round bales of the stuff afterwards, like if you could time it right.
But I guess I would ask, because obviously you're taking all that off of it, how much is that
contributing?
Well, or taking away from some of the benefits of the cover crop?
Well, and if you're cutting green and removing that, I mean, you're removing quite a bit of nutrients there.
Yeah.
Specifically potassium in that regard, and nitrogen as well.
Yeah.
You would definitely have a negative effect in terms of your nutrient cycling.
Yeah. What about terminating it? Like, if I'm just going to go in and, I'm just going to kill the crop, so I need to wait and let it get to a bloom before I terminate?
If you're planting a legume and you're wanting to take advantage of that nitrogen fixing opportunity, yes, you'll need to wait till bloom.
Gotcha.
To reach the full advantage of that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, like I said, this year I don't really have that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and I mean, and planting.
And just to throw this out there, we know margins are tight.
Yeah.
So we have a cover crop out there, and we know they have a lot of advantage. The last 2 years in our regional data, we've seen that April planted beans compared to May planted beans is anywhere from 10 to 13 bushel better.
Yeah.
So.
What about March planted?
We'll see. There's some out there. I told a guy the other day, he planted some on March 1st, and I said, normally this could be February. Some years this could be February 29th.
Yeah.
And so that was
dang, around wild. Here?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, 60 acres. Went in, dropped in, planted 60 acres of beans, and I know they're not up yet, but we shall see what the verdict is.
I was thinking about planting some next Tuesday.
Do it.
We're
about to get an inch of rain, though. So.
Well, that's what I was...
And it's 34 degrees Tuesday night, I think.
Yeah. Well, there was a chance of rain on Wednesday. So I was like, well, I don't know. But every time I'd looked, they were lowering the chance. And then there was several days of no rain. So I'm like, I am hell-bent on planting some beans in March.
It's funny, the kind of the mindset has changed to trying to plant early beans. And we used to plant them in May and early June, and now we're trying to plant them in March. It's like, what happened to just maybe going a couple weeks early? Now we're trying to move it up a month and a half.
Somebody's going to try that shit in January before long. They're going to be like, I think this snow will get off of here. We'll put a good treatment on these beans. It'll hold them. And
Well, we talked about the guy that, what had he done? He had planted, and he was a little further south of us, like in southern Arkansas. he had planted like some mid-February beans.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And
They've
then-
already got corn in the ground down there.
Yeah, and like he was double cropping beans, and then had wheat behind, so he was
Yep.
getting triple. I guess you call it triple cropping. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's. I just was listening to a podcast the other day. I listened to that Extreme Ag. You ever listen to any of them?
No, not really.
Not really. They're like sometimes they can get pretty extreme. But they had a guy in Arkansas that just he plants starting in February on all his beans, and he talked about which he does some double crop beans, but he said his February planted beans average typically in the 80s, and I've seen other guys, they talk about like, you know, sunlight seems to be a huge factor on beans. And I've seen this, it's kind of interesting light, because I've noticed when I'm cutting a field, if it's on the edge of a road, you ever notice like you drive by, the field will be dead as a doornail, but under the light it's green.
Light. Oh,
Man,
They have
it's
to leave it out when they're harvesting.
it's hell on the combine. Yeah, because I'll kind of,
Well, the plant never shuts down.
yeah. I
No.
wonder,
Soybeans kind of work off maturity, but if you plant them late and you're getting into that, I mean, they're working off that day of light, you know, that hour of light. So photosynthesis is very important for soybeans.
Yeah.
Extremely important.
do you think with an early bean, do you think sunlight is what's making the biggest difference, or what do you think it is?
You know, a lot of the ideology there is trying to get that soybean plant to R3 at summer solstice.
Yeah.
You know, that's the game plan there. Let's try to get us in deeper into reproductive stage where we have more nodes at summer solstice, the longest day of the year, to where we can capture more of that sunlight.
Yeah.
I've heard
And I
Matt
think-
Griggs mention that.
Yeah, you know, Matt Griggs, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I've seen a lot of success with it. You know, it's hard to plan for that if the conditions aren't perfect during planting time, but there's also many years that whole week it's cloudy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're like, well, what did I really chance all this for,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, sunlight, photosynthesis, very important for a soybean plant, way more important than it is for corn.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I think we see that in the geography, a lot of times when you're getting in certain environments, magnesium, manganese, things like that are so important for a soybean plant because they are helping promote that chlorophyll production. They are helping promote, you know, the efficiency of that photosynthesis and carbohydrate delivery in the plant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's my goal is to start planting. I'm going to just plant, I had said 50 to 100 acres in March and just see. And then, you know, first week of April, I plan to just bust it wide open.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, the beans that we have today, the treatments that we have, you can go early and still be fine.
Yeah.
I think in our market, you know, where we're not really preparing a seed bed, I think you probably need to keep your rate up a little bit more. So
On your pop?
On your pop.
Yeah.
You know, some guys are going out early with 100, 120,000.
I was thinking 135.
I think 135 to 140 for us on those extreme early environments is fine.
Yeah.
You know, because we need to get a stand. I've been telling people all through the region that I meet with, I was like, the last thing we need to do this year in an economy this tight is take a planter to the field 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
You know, we need to take a planter to the field once.
Yeah. Yeah. What is, have you heard much on this? I think I've heard them say 85,000. If you have a final stand of 85,000, you still can have like almost the comparable yield to if you had a full stand. Like some people, they were saying that 85,000 is almost like an optimal number on soybeans.
I think at that point in time, you have to really take into context what date are you talking about? You know, when is that planting date?
Yeah.
I think if you're getting pushed back after May 15th for us in our area with the group 4s that we're planting, you probably need a little higher end of the spectrum. But I've definitely seen it. You know, I've seen in Missouri where we went out with a trial and unfortunate weather events, we get 80,000 final stand and we still cut 92 bushel beans.
Yeah.
You know,
Man, I bet they looked awesome. They had to be bushed out like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love I love when you, like there was a field, man, I pulled in and it was a spot where the trucks had been. And I mean, it was a shitty stand, but the beans that were there were like huge. You know, it was just bushed out. It was freaking nodes all over them things.
Yeah. You know, if you plant a longer, like for us, it'd be a later 4.
Yeah.
You plant a later 4 early, it's going to keep trying to do its thing, you know, and it's not going to give up. It's going to put nodes on. It's going to bush out.
Yeah.
You know, you have time. The problem is when you get into May 15th, you don't have near as much time.
Yeah.
You know, and especially if you get into June, you know, you're giving up 7 to 8 nodes.
Yeah. What would be in an ideal scenario, what would be the latest you would plant beans? And I mean, I know this, like I said, weather permitting, planter doesn't break down. It's like I don't want to be planting after this date. You know, June 15th
I would
always was
say
what
it
you
determines
say.
on what kind of maybe insurance APH you have on that acre. But
Yeah.
I'd say really for us, if you get much past July 1st, you're pretty much 35 bushel or below.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man,
And that would still be a really good weather condition to get you there, you know.
yeah. Yeah, I know it's interesting looking at the different beans, because I remember when I first got in, there was guys planting some group 3s, and we used to plant some group 5s. And now I don't ever plant a group 3, and I don't ever plant a group 5. I plant, and actually most of mine are a 4-4 to 4-5 or more. Mm-hmm. I plant a lot of 4-7s and a lot of 4-9s. But I don't even if I planted, like, I don't remember one time I was asking one of my reps there at Helena, I guess probably Keith, I was like, man, you know, what about planting this, do I need to plant a 3-9 or something here? And he's like, nah, let's go with a 4-3 or 4-4. Like, why is that? Why are we kind of going that route?
So I think a lot of that depends on kind of what zone you're in.
Yeah.
The farther north that I go in my territory, you know, while we're starting out planting 4-2s and 4-4s, they're planting 3-8s and 3-9s.
Yeah.
That's just
because of the frost threat or something. I mean,
no, they know that their season's not as long as ours.
Gotcha.
And so, you know, they don't need that as much time.
Yeah.
And so, really for us, I think you have to look at it too from the breeder's perspective. They're going out there planting parent seed for a market, right? And right now our market is stuck in a 4 to a 4-9.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to get parent seed for. That's what they're trying to grow the seed supply for. So that's what we get, right?
Yep.
But we have a lot of good opportunity in that market. There's still some really good 5-3s out there on the market, some 5-2s. But I think with us pushing our planting window up earlier, we have seen that a lot of guys in my market are starting out with that 4-6 to 4-9.
Yep.
Then they might go to that 4-2 to 4-4, and then they're kind of stepping back up into that, you know, something a little more aggressive.
Yeah.
They can kind of get some height and some nodes on it with the 4-6 or later, going back to that.
Well, why do we not see more 5s here? Like, I would almost think, like, all right, if we...
There's still a lot of 5s planted for wheat beans, for double crop
Well,
beans.
see, we would always do them on wheat beans.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder why... Which, again, we just didn't have great yield success out of the 5s.
Right. Most of those are determinants.
Yeah.
So really your weather pattern really makes a critical impact on those for us. So
Yeah.
I think we've probably seen a little more yield stability with the indeterminate beans, allowing us to, if we catch a rain, capitalize on that while the bean can.
Yeah.
Rather than having to, you know, go hitting those growth stages a lot more of a specific timing.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's still a lot of 5s that get some good height on them, and we still take advantage of them where we need to.
Yeah. Well, I'm on Tinker this year at, I don't know, the early beans I plant, they may be 4-9s.
Yeah,
the
I'm
first
good with
beans I
that.
plant that I was looking at. And it is interesting, like whenever we had, I guess, the meeting up here at the the Veterans Museum in Covington, we met, John, I think, came out and talked, and he went over a bunch of seed. And it's interesting, man. It's just cool to me how you got seed. These do well planted early. These do well planted late. Like, because I made a note, because I'm like, all right, I want to plant all my beans as early as I possibly can. But I still made a note. They were like, these beans, if you got to plant a bean late, this is a bean you want to plant late. And I made a note of that because inevitably, planter's going to break down. Weather's going to get crazy. Something's going to happen. And I may find myself like planting them later towards the end than I want to be. And the genetics are so, there's a lot of options when it comes to genetics. So I think it's pretty cool.
It is really neat. It's really awesome what the breeders have been able to do in soybeans over the last 10 years. But, I mean, you look at it now, you got race horses, you know, and then you got some powerhouses out there that can just go get it. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot of them out there that can go get the yield, but they can't handle the stress.
Yeah.
Right. And so here later, the later planted ones that you still want to capture some of that yield opportunity on, you want to move to more of a stress tolerable bean.
Yep.
Sure.
We love that 47A64.
Just gonna throw it out there.
That was
Dicamba only.
last year. That was my
No label.
no label. We loved it. I can't get it this year.
No.
Can't even get it. Oh, I was like, I might just go for it.
And my buddies in Missouri, the 46X6. You know,
That was there.
I
Oh,
think they would have took it to the grave.
Dad planted some last year.
Yeah.
He planted some last year.
Yeah. It's a pretty bean, man.
It is, but
Pretty.
you better cut them
But
quick.
that baby will pop out.
I was gonna say you better cut them quick.
Yeah, it's like your wife having a fourth baby. That's still gonna pop out. You know?
Dude. Those the 46X6. That was like the OG, man. That one, but if you got in there and cut it, I mean, hell, like I said, Dad had some last year, and I think they cut in the 80s. They might have cut like low 80s. Average that at least high 70s, low 80s. Those are a badass bean. But even early, he got in there. Those were like the first he planted, and he cut them pretty damn early. And you still get out there and you can see the whites shining at the top for them. That pods have twisted and they pop out. They just can't hold on to a bean.
Well, I'm not going to get on here and talk about seed companies, but there's some out there that they all have their flaws, right?
Yep.
You know. And
Oh yeah.
Pod integrity can be one for one, and SDS is going to be one for another.
Yep.
And a real healthy, tough cutting bean is going to be one for another one. So.
Oh yeah. Them 47A64s are a tough cutting, dude.
Tough cutting, man. Yeah.
It loads the combine down. But those beans are badass. And I'm not hating on 46X6 because what they pop out for, they make up for with the rest. But yeah, no, I had asked Keith, I was like, what about them 47s? Which I got some fields that don't have pigweed pressure, and I've just managed them. I think cover crop has helped a lot on that, but I don't have that pressure. So I was like, man, I could not worry about pigweed on this place. And he's like, man, we can't get them. And I think, 48 XF4s or something that's supposed to take the place of them, or
That'd be the 48 Z70.
Z70. Yeah, because it's the Z that's the Pioneer. I'm going to plant some. I don't know. Have you seen those beans a lot?
Yeah, they're really, really good.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try them out. I'm going to try those out. And you kind of speak Bobby Lee's language on the triticale.
Yeah, man.
You planted some of that, didn't you?
Yeah, I planted some winter annuals a year or two in a row, for grazing. And I quickly realized I didn't have time because I was like, man, I was trying to get, more forage, yield per acre. And I was doing winter annuals and summer annuals. And I was like, yeah, I don't have time to be. Especially when the farm's just my side job. It was fun to play around with, though.
You ever tried some Sudan grass? Cut it for hay?
I never did for hay. We grazed it. I messed with, you familiar with teff at all?
Yeah.
We planted teff one year.
That's old school right there.
It's like native to like Ethiopia.
Yeah, it's got some history behind it.
Yeah, we did some sorghum Sudan grass, did some millet.
Bobby Lee's a grass farmer. That's what he calls it.
Yeah.
I mean, and
that's all we
He's
are.
got to feed that herd.
Yeah,
we're just using cows to
So how
harvest our crop.
did you get around the $75 round bales and things of that nature?
As far as affording it, well, I started, I'm trying to think how many years now, 3 or 4 years ago, and it probably still wasn't, if I put the pencil to it, the right move, but bought my own hay equipment, and I've taken advantage of, I cut some real marginal ground for hay for the most part, stuff that nobody wants to plant a crop on, that sort of thing. Little odd fields and whatnot, and I've been able to pick up some more hay ground actually just here in the last few weeks. And but
yeah, he hates row crop farmers.
No, I love $4 corn. That's one thing we're doing this year. We're buying all these high dollar calves, and I was like, we're going to push feed to them. Like when I'm buying feed for $270, $260 a ton, like, all right, I can. That pencils out real nice.
Yeah.
I'll push that like crazy. So, yeah, some of us are happy with corn price where they are.
Yeah.
I don't need y'all to go broke, but
you need you guys to stay in business to keep growing that corn. But yeah. No, man, it's I don't know. I just, there's so many ways to skin a cat in farming.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and you know, we've talked about nowadays just how the landscape has changed. Used to, I mean, our dads is a prime example. They row cropped, but they also ran cattle. And at one time they had over 300 head of cattle. They had a big cattle operation. For our area, that's a big area, a lot. So a lot of farmers, man, you see they row crop farm, they had cattle, hell, they might sell produce. They had all kinds of irons and fires. And as we've kind of industrialized and tech has gotten better, guys kind of just honed in on one. It's like, all right,
everybody's specialized. Yeah.
Yep, I'm a cattleman, I'm a row crop guy, I'm this. And then when one of those markets shits the bed and that's your whole income, then you're up the creek, man.
Yeah.
And so guys used to could get away with, and I've had this conversation with a lot of guys that have been in the industry a long time, and they're like, used to, you didn't have to run as tight of a ship because the margins were a lot more friendly. You know, even in a bad year, it's like, well, you still hung in there. But now that things have gotten so bad, it's like, man, you got to diversify. You got to watch you got to cross every T, dot every I. And, but we really preach about diversifying. Like, I think that, man, at this point, unless you're, I mean, honestly, the only guys that I know of that really didn't just lose their ass, they own paid for land.
That's right.
And that's not a lot of us in the industry, and especially not on the younger end of the spectrum. And so it's like, man, you got to find you need some other revenues or other cash flow coming in to try to keep the ship afloat.
That's right.
So I don't know, man. I mean, what's the general vibe? What are you seeing? Our guys, I'll tell you kind of my philosophy for this year. I've had some people ask me, what's your plan? And my game plan is, my old philosophy was you got to risk it for the biscuit, and that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm going into this year with the goal of growing. I'm gonna flood the market. I'm gonna be part of the problem, but my goal is to grow the baddest corn I've ever grown and the freaking best beans I've ever grown. Like, I'm gonna run the tech. I'm gonna shoot for it. I'm just gonna try to hit the high yields.
Well, I think at the end of the day, the high yields is what's going to pull us out of it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's not a lot, like I mentioned earlier about the budgets. The budgets are tight, but there's not really anywhere to pull $50 out of.
No.
And you could wisely spend that $50 to help you increase your overall yield opportunity for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the mindset of some people.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people is, a lot of people are in saving mode.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just scrapping to stay alive.
Yeah.
And I think for those guys that are in that position, I think it's still smart to diversify your crop mix.
Yeah.
As best you can. Manage your fertilizer inputs as best you can. Have that balanced, across the board. Have somebody looking at your crop or be involved with looking at your crop throughout the year. Stay engaged with it. Stay on top of it. Maximize on any small opportunity you can.
Yeah.
That's like I tell a lot of my farmers that I deal with, things that bring a 2-to-1 ROI, maybe that's not what we spend our money on this year. Maybe it's the things that we know can bring a 4 or 5 to 1 ROI.
Yeah.
And obviously biostimulants are a big part of that movement. I'll speak directly to guys right now that are consistent soybeans. In our market last year, I feel like a lot of guys gave up yield on running a lower tier fungicide.
Yeah.
And Septoria brown spot come in our soybeans earlier than I've ever seen it in my years of being in ag in this area.
Really?
I've never seen Septoria come in before bloom. And there was a lot of fields that had Septoria brown spot before bloom. And it, the leaves started dropping and the photosynthesis stopped, and you could tell those beans gave up really early.
Is that why I had a lot of pods that just didn't fill out?
I think more of that was probably
just the drought.
Environmental at the time. We probably just had a drought during that time.
Yeah.
You would still expect that pod to fill out, even with not a lot of chlorophyll or energy going from the leaf into the reproductive parts of the plant. But
so you're a believer in fungicide?
Oh, 100%.
Sell me on fungicide.
Well, I'll sell you on fungicide. We're even seeing value-added applications in cotton now.
Really?
Yeah. And I really think a lot of it is the new fungicide technology that's out on the market. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you fungicide corn every year and it's going to pay. I can't tell you that because it's all dependent on what variety you're planting, when you plant it, what stage is it at, what time of year is it when that corn reaches R3. I don't know that. If it's early planted, you're probably safe. Around here, if you're planting mid-May corn or later, you better fungicide it.
Yeah.
Because
rust.
rust is going to come to Thanksgiving dinner.
I've had some terrible rust over the years, which we fly on fungicide typically on corn because, man, I'll tell you what holds me back on fungicide. And I'll fungicide some. Like, I fungicide corn. I don't remember. Might have done all my corn 2 years ago, but I had it flown on. But I can't stand running over the beans with the sprayer. And
man, you got to do it.
It just hurts my feelings. And
last year in our area, consistent soybeans.
Now I heard about last year.
Consistent soybeans now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing 10 to 18 bushel.
Dad fungicided a lot, and I didn't. And even when we got into the bad drought beans, his were probably cutting 10 more than mine. And where I had some of the damage from where they were ready, and then we got that hurricane rain, I had a higher damage percentage than his.
Really?
Yeah, last year was absolutely a fungicide year. No, I'm like, this year probably going to go the route. I was just kind of curious on your thoughts on the fungicide.
I think it's also the fungicide that you're using. Obviously, there's, it all depends on really the weather and the environment.
Yeah.
What are we dealing with? A little shout out to a little company called Spornado. They're a new startup company that wanted to kind of reach out to us, and we helped them place some Spornados last year, and they were finding, it's a way for them to measure different fungals that are out there. So we're kind of measuring those fungal spores, seeing when those spores are coming in prior to maybe your crop showing that symptomology.
Yeah.
And, we were able to capitalize on that a little bit, but there was more out there last year than we normally probably on a year-to-year basis see or have to experience. But the fungicides nowadays, I'm telling you, with anything with an SDHI type chemistry in it, those active ingredients are powerful. They're systemic. You can see that plant health, and it'll carry you to harvest. And we've seen that in soybeans for sure.
Are you a 2 application on soybeans or 1?
I think that's something that everybody's still studying. I don't know. They're saying come in with R1 with, maybe just an azoxystrobin or something like that. And then you come in at R3 or R4 with a top tier type fungicide. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Now, I would say this past year, if you're in a consistent soybean, that's something I would look at.
Yeah.
I tell all my consistent soybean guys, if you're wanting to capture top end yield, you need a very good seed treatment. You need to really focus on potassium and sulfur. And because sulfur is huge in soybeans for helping those beans nodulate. They're it's very big nutrient that has a big part in that soybean plant doing that. Because soybeans really don't start nodulating about V6.
Yeah.
And so if you can promote that a little earlier, obviously it's going to help you reach your higher yield potentials, and then a top tier fungicide, man. I mean, in the consistent soybean, I think that's key.
And when would you say ideal application is on soybean for fungicide?
I really think we need to be in that R3 window.
Yeah.
Especially on your early planted side, if you have a lot of corn in the mix. I don't like pushing it real late because it can push your harvest back some, especially if you're not willing to go out and desiccate the soybeans.
Yeah, I don't like desiccating.
Yeah, not a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people like to go spray gramoxone over the top of their beans
I
or
just told you, I hate running over them. So then I run over them. So I'm going to run over them to apply fungicide. Then I'm going to go back in there and I'm going to run. So then my end row, because, I turn back into my ends, that end row is that wide by the time I get done. Man, and when I harvest them beans, it makes me want to puke. So
I understand.
I had kicked around the idea of getting a drone for fungicide applications. But if I were going to go that route with the way things are now, I would have to sell my ground rig. And I considered it. I actually considered going the route of all drone. But I was like, man, I just don't know. Because I'm not a huge farmer by any means. I mean, I'm a smaller guy in our area. But, I mean, hell, that's still 1,200, 1,300 acres.
Well, let me ask you this. How are you going to plant beans and spray behind them with a drone?
Well, that's what I'd have to be.
You'd have to have you another man or...
Yeah.
that would be a risk in my mind.
Yeah.
Because we know for us, with losing the technology we've lost, that timely applications of residuals this year is going to be a big key
Yeah.
for us staying clean, not having to make extra trips. Every trip we go across with the chemistries we're going to be spraying this year is going to be $20.
Yep.
You know, and you know what it costs to run a spray rig and the diesel and the labor that it costs. I mean, it's not cheap.
No.
So,
Yeah. I just know what they claim you lose 2 bushels an acre every trip with sprayer.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
2 to 3 bushels, what I've heard.
Just hurts my feelings.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, but I am this year. Like I said, man, this year I'm gonna probably fungicide 100%.
As long as you have good weather, you don't have to desiccate them.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same situation we ran into this year. And you can ask everybody in Arkansas and Missouri. They were singing the blues. Their beans were ready for 3 weeks, and we got those later rains, and they greened back up, and the foliage was there, and they were like, "Oh, my beans still got plenty of time before they're ready to cut." Well, they were ready. You know, you should have put gramoxone or something. Then they had 60% damage, and so it was really a nightmare for a lot of them. You know what they were having to deal with in that scenario, but it's not typical that we have 2 hurricanes come through here back to back either.
No, because there was guys around here that desiccated, and then we got that hurricane, and their beans looked like shit. They were black. You drove by them, and the pods and everything had turned black. And so I was like, ooh, man. You know, but being that I'm not a huge farmer, I'm not in quite as much of a time crunch come harvest. So I'm kind of like, well, you know, I can wait another week or 2 before I start. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm kind of like, you know, as long as they'll. And now I desiccated one year. I did some beans, and I remember I desiccated them. And it was nice when I went in and harvested them.
Right.
Because, you know, inevitably when you start, usually by the end of harvest, all the beans are ready. But like when I first start harvest, you know, you're going to hit a green patch, and it just is hell on the combine. And but when I desiccated them, it was nice shit. You could cut a mile or 2 faster, and it fed great and everything because everything's dead. But I don't know, man. I'm gonna experiment with that, but I'm probably gonna fungicide 100% this year. And if it goes to hell, I'll be like, that damn Dustin.
Ag retail got me again.
Gosh damn it, them salesmen got my ass. Yeah. Man, there was one other question. Foliar application of fertilizer versus dry. Mm-hmm. That's another thing I'm hearing a lot. Some guys are saying that now they think that it's more effective to go foliar application versus dry, and I think you use a lower rate as well. What are your thoughts on the foliar versus dry?
I think there's an efficiency play there for sure, and timing. You know, if you know that this, say, really for soybeans, we don't really see soybeans in our area need for a whole lot, and really until about R3.
Yeah.
And so that's really when the potassium play kicks in. Could be some boron that's in the mix at that time. But you take a corn crop, I mean, really for us in our area, it's nitrogen, sulfur, mag early.
Yeah.
You know, in your vegetative stages. Then you get really closer to that reproductive stage. That's really where your nitrogen, sulfur, and potassium kicks in. But on the foliar piece, I'll say this. I think it's a good supplement. It's nothing that can be replaced.
So it's not a replacement for dry?
No. But I will say, you know, if you intend to use foliar nutritional during the season at a specific timing, I think it's okay at times to maybe credit that to your fertilizer budget. You know, really what we see, and if you look at a lot of the research that a lot of the labs and universities have done, you can see that on a corn crop or wheat crop, if you were going out with nitrogen or potassium, you can kind of credit that 1 pound of foliar to 10 units of dry.
Yeah.
On a broadleaf crop for potassium, you can maybe look at like 1 pound of foliar to 20 units of dry for potassium. So I think we've seen it work. It definitely works. I don't think it's something you can go to 100% or rely on completely.
Yeah.
There's a lot below ground that still needs to take place. And obviously a lot of our soils here, if you look at it, I think in my entire geography, we're around 58% of our soils are very low or low in potassium.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of soils that some are highly calcareous and some are extremely high in mag. So you have a lot of antagonisms going on there, and that overall soil solution of cations and having to deal with that relationship. So I still like dry pounds on the ground, but if you got to cut something and you know you're going to run a foliar, I'm okay with making those adjustments.
Yeah. My last big question, Randy Dowdy, are you familiar with him?
Yes.
So he just kind of shook up a lot of people, and which social media, we talk about it all the time on here. All the like people come out with their pitchforks on social media and like to talk shit, but Randy is getting some shit because he was just in like Ag Web or Farm Journal. One of them had him on there, and he said the sweet spot for soybean profitability is 100 bushel to the acre. Now, people were shitting all over him in the comments, and I mean, look, I've been farming. You know, I said this will be my 11th season. Never in my life have I cut 100 bushel beans. Like I have the best beans I've ever been in my life. I think we saw them. The monitor bumped 95 bushels. Might have bumped 100. Did not average anywhere. You know, probably averaged in the 80s, which is still good beans. But I want to know if I was like, Dustin, I got this field over here. This is not the one that needs lime like hell. This is the one that's fertility's pretty good. It's been limed. It was limed 2 years ago. It's pretty good dirt. For all the fertility stuff is lined in pretty good. I need to try to get these beans to 100 bushel to acre. What would you tell me to do? How would you try to guide me to 100 bushels an acre?
In our market, the first thing I'd probably try to bring you back down to earth a little bit. I say, you know, maybe why don't we manage that budget a little bit more and maybe try to make 80 bushel.
But for fun. How would you get me to 100 bushel to acre?
Well, I think first and foremost, what we're going to try to do, we're going to look at a real good seed treatment.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have the full fungicide, you know, attacking all, really getting into the Pythium game for sure there. I think you really need to look at some type of in-furrow application there, something to help stimulate that rooting process, get that plant started off growing well. But really, I think a lot of it's going to focus on Mother Nature.
Yeah.
You know, I've really been doing a lot of studies with potassium and sulfur in season, seeing some really good results there. So I think we would definitely hammer the potassium and the sulfur piece.
How would you go about doing that? What would be would that just be addressing it dry, or would there be?
Just dry.
Okay.
And I think, you know, a lot of people, you know, in our soils, we're not blessed with really high CEC soils, right?
Yeah.
And we're not blessed with a lot of topsoil. Our soils are highly erodible.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately, if we get a rain event, you know, it
washes half of it. Yeah. Away.
But you know, I'm good with waiting until those beans are second or third trifoliate, and then coming in with that application just to increase your efficiency, because that soybean plant.
Well, you do a dry that late into them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, you know, I would really look at something to help promote that photosynthesis. I've seen a lot of success with manganese.
Yeah.
I know I talked to a lot of growers, and sometimes it's in the real low CEC environment, sometimes it's in heavy gumbo soils, but you know, if you're dealing with some lower manganese type situations, we go in there foliar maybe a couple of times to really help promote that photosynthesis, chlorophyll production, helping the growing points of that plant.
Yeah.
Then after that, it's just going to be a good timing of a fungicide and a biostimulant. You know, there's not a whole lot we can do. We want that soybean plant to reach around, you know, if we can get it up there around 18 to 20 nodes, that's what we want. And good seed size. You got to have seed size to make that
test
happen.
weight.
And I think that's one thing we saw this year with our weather was it's the first year in a long time that in our true yield data we've seen zinc have a big impact in soybeans.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was environment related. You know, zinc's something that can really help with that test weight, seed size, the quality issues that we were having. So
yeah, I had some pretty shitty test weights.
Yeah.
Which I thought that mine were pretty shitty, and then I talked to some neighbors that had some really shitty test weights. I don't remember what the insurance rate was. It was like once it got below, it was 40-something pounds on soybeans. I can't remember what it was, but there was quite a few guys that initiated that, man. It was pretty interesting.
I had a farmer last year that wanted to try to get an irrigated field to make 100 bushel beans, and we worked with him some, but he was also working with another consultant. You know, we were just going out there, keeping in contact with him, seeing how things were going. And, threw the kitchen sink at it.
Yeah.
We were talking about spraying it like cotton, 7 to 10 day applications, and they cut 83 bushel.
Really?
Soybeans is one of those crops that kind of have a mind of their own.
Yeah.
You need to do what you can and budget for what you feel like historically you can do. I meet with a lot of growers this year, and I'm saying, okay, what ROI do you want on this acre?
Yeah.
And then we'll backtrack it to what yield do we need to make to reach that goal, and then we manage for that.
Yeah.
And that way we're not overspending dollars. That's what it's all about this year. It's about a balanced fertilizer plan. It's about timely planting. It's about keeping that weed pressure low and minimizing our trips to the field.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a guy, this has been several years ago. It was like a startup company kind of competing with Helena. And he came up to me. We were at a cookout or something, and I don't remember how he was kin to the people there, but he came up to me and was like, "Hey, man, I want to come talk to you one day about some beans." I said, "Okay." And he was like, "I know you deal with Helena," but he said, "Man, I'm going to tell you, I got a program." And he said, "Your beans, I can get you to 95 bushel acre." And I said, "Damn, really?" He was like, "Yeah, man, I'll get you." He said, "We got a hell of a program." And I said, "All right, we'll have to talk about it." And so that next week I called one of my guys at Helena, and I was like, "Hey," I said, "Man, so-and-so said he could get me to 95 bushel acre." I said, "Well, how the hell is he going to do that?" And he said, "Well, hell, I can get you to 95 bushel acre, but you're going to pay $500 an acre inputs." He said, "You ain't going to make no more money. You'd make just as much money at 50 bushels acre." He said, "But you can go around and tell everybody, well, I cut 95 bushel acre beans." He said, "But then if it don't rain, you're going to lose your ass."
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
in our market, we're subject to Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Missouri and Arkansas, they have adequate water and fur irrigation and some pivot irrigation on most of everything. So, when you're in a 90% dryland market, you really have to manage for what your historical expectations are.
yeah,
Especially in years like this. And look, I know it's expensive out there. Inputs are high. Fertilizer is much more palatable now than it has been the last 2 years. But
I was going
it's
to say
still
in 2
overly,
years, yeah.
Phosphate is still the only real nutrient that's over its 10-year average.
Yeah.
And it's expensive. So I would definitely watch my spending in phosphorus. I'd really still try to manage the potassium piece. Anybody on some high CEC, higher mag content soil, really watch that K to mag ratio, calcium to mag ratio.
If you have high mag, what's your advice besides like ripping or something? I mean,
ripping's good. And the big thing about ripping is just trying to get some oxygen in there. Because if you don't have a lot of oxygen and hydrogen interaction, you're not knocking anything off that soil colloid. So all your nutrients are kind of staying in place.
What if they don't have a ripper?
If they don't have a ripper, I would recommend that you soil sample to see what else is going on out there. If you don't have a lot of free calcium and your calcium parts per million are pretty low, you could always look at gypsum.
Yeah.
I tell people, kind of using an analogy all the time, you have calcium is like a basketball. Magnesium and sodium are like a ping pong ball. So you can pack a lot more ping pong balls in your hand than you can a basketball. And so that's how they react in the soil.
Gotcha.
They get tight. They can congregate in a lot tighter bond. And so that's what really hurts our compaction in some places, when you really start talking about some high mag. But really pay attention to K to mag. If that ratio is not 0.2 to 0.3, when you're much lower than that, I would really recommend you really look at the K.
Yeah.
Our K-based saturations in an average CEC, just say 10 to 12, we really need to be in that 3 to 5 range.
Yeah.
If you're lower than that, you still have to manage for potassium.
Gotcha.
Or your plants are going to suffer.
Yeah.
We all know how important pH is. So.
Yeah. 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 I got a field right now that desperately needs lime on it, but which I had told Dustin, this is a field that's it's for sale and part of it's done sold, and it's like, we've talked about like them 1 year lease deals kind of thing where you can't
you need to rent that to Bobby Lee for hay.
Yeah. Man.
Grass Bermuda really don't mind that lower pH.
Yeah.
Is it close by?
It'd be a pretty good drive for your hay equipment.
It's a good 4-lane though.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to go through a couple of towns to get there. Hell, I'd drive a combine there. You'd be able to make it.
Man, time. And we talked about time on soybeans. Time, man. The older, y'all are both a little younger than me. The older you get, the more you realize time is the most valuable thing on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I see that. Kids make you see that.
Oh yeah.
How fast they grow. Yeah. Well, yeah, man. You got any other questions for him?
Man, no, I did. Like say, necessity is the motherhood of invention. That's the thing I was trying to.
Yeah.
say
You've been
earlier,
bothered by that this whole
I
time.
was like, I can't believe I had that
He's
brain
like, damn it,
fart.
I sound like an idiot.
But yeah, my whole point there was, when beans are $15, or I don't know if they've ever been $15, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
Corn's $8. Like, yeah, everybody's like, I don't need an agronomist. I'm gonna make money no matter what I do.
Yep.
You know,
Right.
old Mike Bloomberg, you just put a seed in the ground.
Yeah.
All the times like this, they do kind of suck, but at the same time, the folks that come out of it, learn a lot, figure out a lot of things, and
Oh, if you survive, you're a better
I'm
operator for it.
oh yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
natural selection.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and man, hey, I think you said Matt Griggs actually had made this remark, like he had kind of run through his budget in a video or something, and he was saying, their profit margin was super slim. And Matt and them are sharp. I mean, that dude is sharp, and he watches his spending and all this, and I mean, even for them, like their profit margin is razor thin. And he was like, hey, at the end of the day, it's up to the big man upstairs.
yeah,
And that's kind of how I am this year. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do what I can to provide the best nutrient, to try to plant as timely as I can, to spray as timely as I can, and to provide the necessary nutrients to be there.
Yeah.
Aside from that, there ain't nothing else I can do.
That's all you can do.
Yeah. So put the seed in the ground, do my thing, and
And try to stay optimistic, because if you get down in the mud, it's just gonna make it that much harder, and make the year
gosh.
that much longer, and
yep.
you're gonna be upset with everything that comes your way. And at the end of the day, manage that budget.
Yeah.
Have a balanced budget. Have a game plan going into this year. That's the biggest key. That's what I've been preaching, a game plan. And
Yeah.
it's not all centered around fertilizer.
Yeah.
It's everything in the mix needs to be looked at.
Yep. Well, that's kind of my plan with, like I said, field view and everything. I'm going to just try to utilize it more than I ever have, and try to pump up that so that at the end of the year I can put throughout the year I can put every piece of data along there. And which, I mean, y'all pull or tissue samples even throughout the year, so I can kind of, if there's something I need to address specifically, I can usually hit that. And I do like Micah. One time he like patted me on the back and he was like, man, you're kind of like royalty at Helena. And I said, why? He said, you were like our first whole farm high ground guy.
Yeah.
And I said, really? And he was like, yeah, man. And I'm like, hell yeah. But no, man, I am a believer in it. And I hope a message people can take. Like, if you're a couple things, if you can take away from this. One, you can tell, I told y'all, Dustin's a freaking wizard on there. See, do you doubt it now after hearing this guy?
He was talking way above my head on about 98% of that.
Well,
Okay.
he's he is the man on it. And man, the importance of having a good team around you. Like, man, like I said, don't try to think that's like you're the man and you just, because you farm and you can do it all. Like, have a good team of agronomists and everything involved in your operation. And if you're interested in ag and you're like, man, I don't know, I can't find the damn land to farm. Like, there are avenues that you can be a part of agriculture. And I mean, you get to be on the land and go out and check land and get to interact with the farmers. And like, I mean, you got a fun job, in my opinion. Like, it's a serious job, but it's a fun job in a lot of ways.
It's very serious, but all of my satisfaction comes from seeing the reward that farmer reaps off a recommendation we made or something we decided to do together.
Yep.
At the end of the day, if he's satisfied with what we did and he sees success in that, then that's my paycheck.
Yep, for sure. Well, man, yeah. Well, you want to cue the man up? I gave Dustin a heads up, actually. You're the first guest I've given a heads up to.
Yeah.
We usually just put him on the spot, but I did. So he better have one badass American-made product. Now, Bobby Lee cues up our we're very high tech here, talking about all our technology.
It's super high tech.
Yep. You always have a hard time getting it to line up right.
I'm doing it perfect this time. I just got to be sure I stop him.
Start off with 2 words. Made in America.
Damn it, you didn't stop it in
My
time.
thumbs aren't fast enough.
That's some good 2 words there.
2 words, made in America.
Awesome 2 words.
We couldn't change it even after he's out. We're like, we got to keep that as the thing.
Yeah.
So what's a made in America product company that you put your stamp of approval on?
So, look, for me, I wake up early. I got a lot going on in the mornings. Late nights on the computer helping people.
Yeah.
Coffee's my go-to, man. I got to have the coffee. That black magic in the morning.
Yep.
You can have a bad night, long night. You get that first sip of coffee, you're a brand new man.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir.
Hey, I'm gonna do a shout out to Black Rifle Coffee Company,
Okay.
man.
What's your blend?
I like just black, man.
Yeah.
Just
You
black.
just-
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think I'm currently on some Fruit and Fuel.
Okay, you.
I get.
Have you tried their extra caffeine one yet?
Caffeinated is CAF.
Yeah. That,
I hadn't tried. I get too hyped.
I looked at it and I was like, that might be too much for me.
Yeah.
I do because I love just variety. Variety's the spice
You do
of life.
cocaine?
Cocaine.
You-
You
Yeah.
put a little cocaine in there? You don't want no part of this shit.
That's what I usually.
Put a little cocaine in there. Start your morning off.
Because I'm a just straight drink my coffee black. But that might, if you stirred a little.
I don't
of that
think
in
that
there-
would throw the sweetness off. Like, I don't think it would make it like sweet like sugar.
No,
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't be able to really talk about that.
I don't know about the carbohydrate. Yeah, I have to watch my carbs.
That's true. Yeah, he's pre-diabetic, so he has to watch his carbs. Does cocaine have a lot of carbs?
I don't know. I've never
Interesting.
done it.
I've never looked at the nutritional value.
When I buy
Doesn't
it,
come with a label.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
label. You flip it over, and there's really no label on the back. But,
Yeah.
I always get the. I like the variety pack, like the
Oh, yeah.
mystery. They send me 4 bags, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna get.
Murdered Out was the one I always
I'm about to say,
liked.
I like
That's
the
a good
dark
one.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like dark roast.
Yeah.
Murdered Out. Freedom Fuel's a dark roast. I'm enjoying that right
Yeah.
now.
That's
Hey,
a
I tell you
solid.
what, if you're a camping man, you like to go camping.
Yep.
You like to cook stuff in Dutch ovens and skillets. Lodge, man.
Yeah,
Lodge
cast irons.
Yeah, man. You got
Got
to get
one
you a
at the
Lodge.
house.
I
I'm
was about
telling
to
you.
say, I cooked in mine. I think I had 3 meals today. At
Hey,
mine.
Didn't
shout out to Manchester, Tennessee. They're
Yep.
doing
Yep.
big things over there.
Didn't we featured them before?
they've been on there before.
Yeah, we are big fans of the cast irons.
We love cooking on cast iron. I got 2 of them at the house. I cook on it 98% of the
I
time.
was about to
Yeah.
say, I cooked breakfast and I actually cooked lunch today. I got home and had time. I cooked 3 meals today in mine.
In a cast iron?
Yeah.
Are you a big movie guy?
You would probably need to get my wife on here if you're going to talk about movies. She's a big movie.
But you've seen Walk Hard?
I'm right
Wait,
there with you.
cocaine. What is that? Hold on, that's Ricky Bobby.
Ricky, yeah.
Okay, Walk Hard. You got me thinking about Walk Hard. You need to watch that if you appreciate Ricky Bobby humor, because it has
Now, who's in that?
John C. Riley.
John C. Riley.
I hadn't even seen it, but I've seen enough of the clips.
The
that-
clip, it's great. Before we wrap, I got to share. Like, there's this great part, man. He's, it's a spoof of Walk the Line, and yeah, John C. Riley is like,
Is he Johnny Cash?
he'd be Johnny Cash's part,
Yeah.
and man, he's in there, and his band member, one of the band members, he's the dude. He was on Saturday Night Live, but he goes and he opens the bathroom door to go in, and it's his band member and this group of people in there, and they're smoking marijuana, and he opens the door and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" And he's not done any drugs at this point, and his band member goes, "Get out of here, Dewey, you don't want no part of this shit." And he's like, "What are you doing?" And he says, "We're smoking marijuana." And he's like, "I don't want to get addicted to nothing." He says, "It's not addictive." And he goes, "Wow, I don't want to feel bad." "It doesn't make you feel bad, or it doesn't cause a hangover." And he goes, "Well, I don't have any money." "It's the cheapest drug there is." And it doesn't. And so he's like,
He's a great salesman.
he is. He's like, "I think I want some of that marijuana." And it progresses through the movie. It goes from like marijuana to cocaine, but at the end, they're old. And he opens the bathroom door, and this dude is in there, and he's old, and there's a bunch of chicks in there. And he's got a blue pill, and he's about to take it, and he's like, "What are you doing in here?" And he's like, "I'm taking Viagra." And he's like, "I don't want no part of that shit." And the guy goes, "But it gives you a boner." Like it is if you like some Ricky Bobby humor, walk hard is right there with it.
Yeah.
So, man, Dustin, we appreciate you coming
Hey,
on, man.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed
It's been great.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I just want to say good luck to all the farmers this year. Hope everybody has a safe planting season and a safe year, and God bless the U.S. farmer.
That's right, man. That's right. Well, we give a shout out, agzaga.com. Go on there, get your orders in. Yeah, like Bobby Lee says, get your bayonet wrap. Still need to get you some of them copperhead underwear if they got them in. And use the code TalkDirt, all caps, all one word. Leave us a rating and a review. Go to talkdirtpodcast.com and the contact page. You can submit your questions. Again, if you have any questions for Dustin, comment them, and I'll harass him for you, get an answer. But
You want to leave like your phone number? Anything?
Yeah, give us your phone
Like
number.
your home number?
Yeah, hey,
Your address.
If you need anything, you reach out to Logan. I'll get you hooked up.
Yeah. So, all right, man. We do appreciate you.
Thank y'all.
Y'all take care.